Hey everyone, welcome to another recap of RuPaul's Drag Race. And this is season 8, of course, episode 8. So we're kind of getting down to the last few here. There's only going to be, I believe, 3 more episodes after this. But this one was the famous Drag Puppets mini challenge. And I really always like that. But, obviously some people do better than others. Uh, for instance, Bob the drag queen was given kimchi to do as a puppet, and the puppet looked really bad, I thought. Obviously, Bob was funny; he always is, so he did pretty good in that regard. But yeah, that puppet looked not good. And I liked how the puppet kept falling; he kept having it fall. That was funny. Chi Chi had Bob the drag queen. I thought Chi Chi did very well, and also was very funny, and really did a good job with Bob as a puppet. Now they did give him hair, as he said, and that was not something we are used to seeing with Bob, as just Bob. I mean. And then, Kimchi had Chi Chi. I know it didn't stand out too much to me, but it was okay. Naomi had Derek Barry, and him and Derek. So Naomi and Derek had each other as puppets, and they were just going back and forth, and there was a lot of negativity, and I thought that took away from the funness of this challenge, where they were just sniping at each other. So I wasn't too impressed, but Derek did a good job with Naomi's. I wrote down cutting deep. So he was cutting deep on that, on some of those comments. But he did a good job in general. So, yeah, the drag puppets, I always do enjoy that. You pick from a whole, kind of interesting. Um, at some point, I think it was actually before that, though, there was a lot of conversation back and forth about Derek and what he isn't doing and what he should be doing, and all this stuff. And boy, it was like a barrage. And I am hearing a lot of comments online too about Derek in a negative sense, and I guess I don't really get all the negativity. um, I don't know. I think he's doing okay. I think part of it is some people feel that he should be out already, and that people like Thorgy and even Robbie Turner went home when Derek should have been the one. Well, maybe so. Everyone's entitled to that opinion, but here's the thing: is Derek survived longer than they did, and that's RuPaul's ultimate decision. And there are going to be people who don't agree with it. Just like in past seasons when Ben de la Creme went home, a lot of us didn't like that and didn't think that was the right. Or things like that when certain people go home. I mean, last year, justice for Trixie, and nobody wanted Katya to go home and all that. I mean, but people go home based on how they do or how they're perceived to have done. So that's just the way it is. But I don't see the point in being overly negative towards a particular person, in this case Derek, online or any other way. So then they were given the main challenge, and the main challenge was that 3-part challenge where they also, and I don't know why they're surprised, but they have a little production number to do at the beginning. So this one, the 3 categories were baby drag, that's my mama realness drag, and eleganza extravaganza drag. So they had to create a look. Now the catch, and this was a really interesting catch. I mean, in the past they had to do all kinds of things before, but this one they had to use books on that last outfit. Nothing but books. Now Bob managed to sneak in just cardboard, quite a bit of cardboard, but his outfit was great. I mean, it didn't really follow the rules of the challenge so much, but it looked great, and he did a great job on it. But anyway, let's back up for a minute. So with the baby drag, uh, there was an interesting conversation, by the way, and Naomi, in the back and forth between Naomi and Derek in the workroom. I wanted to go back to that for a minute. There was a comment made about you look like a real woman. That's not drag. Well, I find that a very strange comment because guess what? There's all kinds of drag, and to say that looking like a real woman or looking, as has been said, fishy, is not drag, that's ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard in a long time. Now, I don't have anything against Naomi, but I think he's really immature. And at one point during Untucked, he said, "Don't put me in a box." Well, guess what? That's what you're doing about drag. You're putting people in a box, saying that if they don't do their eyebrows like you do, or like most people in the show does or do, then that's not drag, or it's not correct drag. There is not one form of drag, people. So he needs to get over that. I mean, I don't understand the concept. I mean, does he think that drag queens in the 60s dressed just like drag queens today, or any other decade? I mean, things change, and even in this decade, people do drag differently. I wish people would finally get that through their thick skulls. So, for instance, if you do clown drag, so-called clown drag, like Trixie or somewhat like Bianca, well, that doesn't look the same. It's different. Then you've got people who look very real. So yeah, you can't. I mean, to me, that was a really bizarre comment, and I don't agree with it at all. Um, and, the bottom line is, I wrote this down: drag is not one thing. There is not one kind of drag. So, yeah, no, don't agree. Sorry. Um, Also, there were some side things that were brought up that I want to mention before I go on to the challenge. This story about Bob's mom's illness was very touching, I thought, and it was good to see a softer side of him, even though unfortunately it's due to his mom's illness. And it would have been kind of nice to know how she's doing now, but they didn't really say that. Um, Kim Chi is a design queen, somebody said, and I can see that to an extent. It'll be interesting to see more of her performances, so we'll see about that. Um, Derek was giving shade left and right about all kinds of things, and like I said, that whole back and forth with him and Naomi in the workroom. Phew, boy, they were hot and heavy at that, and I think they came really close to there being, really hard anger or hard feelings. Um, well, when Chi Chi, by the way, won the mini challenge, and her prize was to be in charge of choreography for this little production number. And I'm thinking, is that a prize or is that a penalty? In her case, I think she does like it, doing choreography, but it depends who you work with. And believe me, I know that from some of my past experiences in theater. I was not good at choreography, so anybody working with me, it was a challenge. Um, and then, there was an interesting discussion also about different kinds of talent. So, modeling versus, lip syncing, etc., etc. Again, it kind of goes along with the discussion of different kinds of drag. But I think that something that was said also in Untucked about Naomi, she seemed to not want to take on the term of model because that was putting her in a box. Well, it's a little disingenuous of her to say that, but want to put everyone else in a box about the type of drag they do. Um, I thought it was also interesting. This was a lot of this episode. Of course, there was that whole "that's my mama" part, but there was a lot of discussion of people's moms. And Derek brought up the fact that when he told his mother about himself, um, she did not approve, basically, and he said something that I thought was so hard hitting about it broke him and it broke her. And boy, I hope they can repair that relationship. It's really difficult. I know from my own experience. Um, and he related it back to Kim Chi not having told his mother about doing drag at all. And I don't think, if I remember correctly, Kim Chi's mother also doesn't know he's gay, but I'm not positive about that. Um, so anyway, back to the challenge. They had the baby drag, That's My Mama, and Eleganza Extravaganza, as I said earlier. And in the baby drag, I thought they all did pretty well, although honestly, I thought Bob's was the weakest. Um, and I thought Naomi and Chi Chi probably did the best, although the others were good too, Derek and Kim. Um, That's My Mama. I didn't think that one was nearly as good, and I thought that in that case, Kim and Chi Chi did the best. And Derek Barry, I thought, did the worst. I mean, he just looked. I don't know. That just what didn't impress me at all. Oh, and that's what I wanted to say is the whole thing with his eyebrows and finally using the stuff to block out his eyebrows and draw them higher. I don't know about you, but I thought he looked worse. I didn't think that makeup looked right at all. I really didn't. I don't know. There was something about it that was just off, and I'd be curious to know what other people thought about that. So please leave me your comments. Um, but back to That's My Mama. I thought Kimchi did really well with that Korean look and the lack of emotion and such. It was extremely well done. And Chi Chi with I think she had the leopard print, and the mother was very kind of hot to trot, and, you know, really confident. Again, a strong performance. I thought Chi Chi did so well in this whole thing. I really did. And Kimchi right up there with her. Definitely, they were my top two, by the way. Eleganza Extravaganza, the one with all that they made the whole thing out of books except for Bob. Um, I gave Kimchi a 5 and Chi Chi a 5. I thought they both did so well. And Kimchi was probably my favorite in that. That was stunning. And I was watching as she was making it in the workroom, and it was just really interesting how she was doing it. By the way, this was an hour and a half episode, so there was more to write about and watch, obviously. So the others, I thought Bob did extremely well on the Eleganza Extravaganza. It looked excellent. I thought he looked the best he's looked. However, because he didn't really use the book so much or at all, maybe, he obviously got knocked down. Now, I still marked him pretty high in that one just for overall look. Um, and then, I thought that was the strongest of the three categories. The last one, actually, for everyone. I rated everyone the highest, with, like I said, Kim and Chi Chi being the highest, with Bob tied on that one. And then Derek Barry and Naomi just a little bit below that one, or below her. Because, Naomi, one of the things I just continuously do not like about his drag is the no boobs, and in this case, the really flat hair that just gave him no. I didn't like it. And he seems like a really good person, and I love the relationship he seems to have with his mother. It's very special, and I just love it. So I don't have anything against him as a person, but I don't really like his drag. And I hope he doesn't make it into the top three, simply because I do not think he's ready. And I'd much rather see the other three in the top three. So we'll see what happens next week, but that's my hope. That would also be my prediction, but you just never know. This has been a very unpredictable season, I think, from the start. With Naysha Lopez going home on the first episode, it threw me through a loop because she was one of my favorites. But that's because I like beauty queen drag, so, that's me. So, anyway, moving on to the end. I had my winner as Kim Chi by a hair over Chi Chi, and that is who won. RuPaul chose Kim Chi as well. My bottom two was Derek and Bob, and I was also, again, in agreement with RuPaul. She chose Derek and Bob. So they did the lip sync, and a few things. I rewatched it a little while ago, the lip sync, and a few things that I want to point out. One is that I think Derek was tossing his hair around way too much and throwing himself on the ground and gyrating and moving, and I don't know I don't know why people think that's the best thing to do during a song. So it's not all about that, I don't think, usually. But Bob did much better, although, I thought, I did, again, Derek didn't do terribly, but I think it was clear that Bob was the winner, so that's who I chose, and that is who won at RuPaul Told to uh, Shantae, you stay, I almost said sachet. But Derek sashayed away, and I always hate to see people go that don't deserve it, and in this case, I guess he did deserve it because he did the worst. But there's some people that do a lot worse in different times or different weeks that I'm like, yeah, you need to go. But Derek wasn't in that category. He was ready to go. I agree, but still sorry to see him go. So anyway, that was episode 8, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will talk to you guys next week for episode 9 when we go down to the final 3. Take care.